My Dr. Vater had a quote taped to the door of his office that carried the sentiment that it's more noble to repair something that is broken than to tear it down and start over. I don't remember the exact quote or who said it, despite hours of sitting in his office, but the sentiment stuck with me. In my younger days, when I was in the tech industry, my mantra was, just reformat the drive and reinstall. Burn it all down. Start again. Better to not have any junk left in after you're back up and running. These days, I'm usually in favor of repairing and restoring rather than replacing. But sometimes you just have to toss it in the bayou and get something else. If it was junk when it was new, it'll be junk after it's restored. Of course, what is trash and what is treasure depends on who's looking at it. Some bits of treasure are just too far gone to be restored, unless it's a labor of love. It's complicated. Some old stuff is junk, some new stuff is junk. Some old stuff is great, some new stuff is great. Restoring vintage Stanley hand planes is something of a rite of passage for YouTube woodworkers. There are literally hundreds of videos of people doing it. I think that there's an impression among people who watch videos by hand tool woodworkers that the YouTuber is only legit if they've restored their own plane. Since I desperately want to be seen as legit, I decided that someday I'll restore an antique hand plane. While I was on vacation, we were wandering among the antique stores and I saw a gnarly pile of rust in the vague shape of a hand plane. I could instantly tell that it wasn't a Stanley or any other brand that I'd ever heard of. I couldn't find a brand mark on it. Maybe, I thought, it's underneath all that rust. It was cheap and I figured, why not? The tote and the knob were in excellent shape, which told me that the rest of it was probably in fine shape too. Disassembly was easier than expected, given the amount of rust. I was expecting everything to be seized. Just a hint of the nectar of gods, and all the parts came right apart. The first thing I noticed was the frog. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Instead of being cast, it was just folded from sheet metal. I assumed that it would not be adjustable. But as I figured out how to remove it, I figured out that it was adjustable. With it completely disassembled and brushed out, I coated it all in WD-40 to dislodge any crud, and to prevent the newly exposed parts from flash rusting. The hive mind has concluded that evaporust is the best method for removing rust, so long as you warm it and use an ultrasonic cleaner. I just happen to have an ultrasonic cleaner that can heat the bath. This fancy bit bolted on the top is designed to support and spin records. Yes, I use an ultrasonic cleaner for my records. It works. Since this cleaner is used for my records, I didn't want to introduce an unknown chemical into it. So I put the pointy bits and the green goo into a sandwich bag and filled the tank with water. What could go wrong? I let it soak for 3 30-minute sessions, and in the third session, that thing which could go wrong went wrong. The pointy bit poked through the bag, and the black rust water leaked into the water bath. It seems fine. But the hive mind is right. Evaporust in a hot ultrasonic bath works amazingly well. It came out better than I could have imagined. So much better than the rust removers I'd used in the past. After drying the parts off, I coated them all in WD-40 again to prevent them from getting rusty. Evaporust is supposed to have an inhibitor in it, but God gave us WD-40 for a reason. That reason is not lubrication. The mouth was chipped on the tail side. I filed it out a bit, trying to take away any jagged parts. The iron is actually a Stanley iron, obviously replaced at some point in the past. Unfortunately, it was in very rough shape. A quick trip to my bench grinder would have fixed it up, but I don't have one, so I tried a hand file instead. After a bit of that nonsense, I got the Dremel out and wondered if the pawn shop had a cheap bench grinder available. Using 60 grit to flatten the back of the iron and the chip breaker worked just fine. More cleaning, oiling the screw holes, and questioning my life choices. I did a light sand on the knob and the tote, and they were in excellent shape. I put them in a sandwich bag with boiled linseed oil and let them soak for nearly 2 days. They were in remarkably good shape. After a good long soak in the hot tub, I wiped them off and let them dry. My assumption is that this was a cheap tool, designed for the home gamer or students. I imagine that schools would buy a couple of dozen of these at a time, with the assumption that they would get dropped within a few years. It isn't a quality tool. It's a tool. It's designed to do a job, and it does the job. After all these years, all that rust and damage, will it take a shaving? Well, my Amish genes kicked in and I was quickly able to set it up and get it dialed in. Yes, it takes wispy, full-width shavings. The test of a plane. The ergonomics on it are fine. Not the finest plane I'd ever used. Adjusting the frog is fiddly, but with some modern cheap planes they can't be adjusted at all. I'd rather fiddly than immobile. With the chip mouth, I'd probably not use it for finer things, but for quick truing up or scrubbing, it works just fine. I hope I've earned my YouTube woodworker credibility badge. If nothing else, I saved a pile of rust from becoming a decoration at Cracker Barrel.